taking a cut. 10% of anything we get of federal money we get to use for council fund. I'm thinking driveways. I'm thinking hot mic? Oh wait.
I know, that's why I'm wearing this. It's like a lot. I know.
Oh.
Can I just say her?
Yeah.
My mom just
Right.
her second booster.
Oh, good.
You know, I don't know that she's getting
Sunday. Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day. We got your booster shot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. True, there could be a wave.
I don't think that's happening.
Oh, no, no, no. Yeah.
Not anymore anyway.
I don't either. I think that it'll be a slight shift.
Maybe on the margins. Maybe that's what's happening.
It'll be on the margins. I've heard
went
the
to my
Senate.
Because of how the districts are run, but I
Like the cousins, they're more like
It's
very there's a lot of variant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
my dad getting sick. And mom's here kind of now we want her to death fade. Oh my God, they were
In the day, in the Trump.
to see her.
Because
Me and my sister are kind of like,
states where it's
I wanted to go, but we had to
no, right. I mean, it's
stuff family for Mother's Day.
but those middle ones. This is not.
kind of like that.
It's almost.
you know, hug somebody you're so happy and healthy and at the same
I
time,
know.
isn't it bad?
I know.
That doesn't push you up.
I know, because nobody's doing that.
balancing it. Are you gonna
Try to make
do
it
the full throated embrace and
Yeah,
or you
Yeah.
walk the line? If you walk the line, you get pissed.
Still, I mean, I've been one of them, you know, like, kind of like, okay, I feel
I hear ya.
whatever. But, you know, I don't know, because I feel like you said, the transmission rates are kind of like going up again. I'm just,
Those on my left.
I don't think
Those on
that's
my right. Don't.
Okay, I mean,
My right fingers.
I know.
what's nice is that
Interesting.
it's not
Yeah.
Mark Adams. Oh, it's time.
yeah, that's the most
You guys all ready?
besides the state.
Y'all ready? Ready? You guys are ready? Good evening. Welcome to the very loud May 9th, 2022 Troy City Council meeting. We're honored this evening to have Pastor Felix Quiñones from Woodside Bible Church do our invocation. So please rise for the invocation. Remain standing for our Pledge of Allegiance. Welcome, Pastor.
Thank you so much for having me. My name's Felix, one of the pastors at Woodside Bible Church, and I'm also a Troy resident, so it's a pleasure and an honor to be with you guys today. And I just want to read a quick verse, not go into a sermon here, as we got to sit down and get on to business, right? But Proverbs 15:21 says this: "A person without wisdom enjoys being foolish, but someone with understanding does what is right." Here's where you guys come in. Plans fail without good advice, but they succeed with the advice of many others. Leadership is one of those things that, for many people, it can seem like it's one of the opportunities to just tell people what to do. But you sit in your seats because you're here to serve the people of Troy. There are many hard decisions, as you know, as a leader, unpopular decisions that need to be made. What I would just charge you guys with as a resident of Troy and someone who's here today is to say, just to work together, to pursue wisdom. And my prayer for this council, not just today, but going forward, is that you would have wisdom beyond your years as you guide and lead our city in so many different areas. Myself, my family, we feel the effects of the decisions made in this room and pray for you guys continually, and believe that you are entrusted with the responsibility of leading our people well, and know that it's your heart desire to do that. Before we begin, let's just bow our heads together and pray. Lord, we thank you for the opportunity to be in this place. Lord, I ask, God, that today you fill this room, Lord, with much, much wisdom, Lord. As decisions are made, Lord, it can be easy to look at numbers on a piece of paper or numbers on a spreadsheet, Lord. But aside from just those tools that we need, Lord, what's behind those numbers are people and families, children, mothers, fathers, families, Lord. And what we pray today, God, is that you would guide the folks here, Lord, in this room to make wise decisions, Lord, to lead with courage, to lead well, God, to always place the well-being of the people first, Lord, no matter how difficult or how unpopular a decision may be, God. May they work together to bring about a better city, Lord, and to see the people of Troy and, Lord, and even its surrounding areas, Lord, experience great prosperity, Lord, in the different areas, Lord, that make up our city. Lord, we thank you again for these people. Pray blessing over them, their families, friends, and Lord, lead them this evening again in leading us as citizens of Troy. We love you and thank you. And it's in your name that we pray, Lord. Amen and amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Pastor. Appreciate that very much. We'll call the May 9th, 2022 Troy City Council meeting to order, and I'll ask for the roll call from Ms. Stewart this evening.
Mayor Baker,
Here.
Councilmember Abraham,
Here.
Councilmember Brooks,
Here.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krianga,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt,
Here.
Councilmember Hamilton,
Here.
Councilmember Hoderick.
Here.
All present this evening. First up, I have a vote on a resolution to waive the rules of procedure for the City Council, Rule Number 4A, regular meeting agenda, to add an item on the agenda. Resolved that Troy City Council hereby waives the rules of procedure for City Council, Rule Number 4A, regular meeting agenda, to add an item on the agenda, which will be C1, Congresswoman Haley Stevens' legislative update.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Hamilton, that we approve the vote on resolution to waive the rules of procedure. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Stewart.
Mayor Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham,
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krianga,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt,
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick.
Yes.
Motion carries. So first up is certificates of recognition and special presentations. We have one this evening. It's C1, a legislative update from our Congresswoman Haley Stevens.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. What an honor to be with you and this remarkable city council, and of course our city manager and our city attorney and all of our guests who are in attendance for tonight's city council meeting. What a treat to see a new fire chief be sworn in. As the subcommittee chair for research and technology, I'm delighted to tell you that not only do we oversee fire safety grants, and we would be delighted to help your city achieve one, I will return to Washington tomorrow to mark up a piece of legislation that I was proud to write with my colleague, Congressman Richie Torres, for fire safety. And it is a bill that will direct federal resources for communities in the aftermath of a horrific fire so that they will have resources from the federal government to investigate what started the fire. Fires are up 122% from year over year in Michigan. And so it's obviously very poignant to be returning to Washington tomorrow to see my bill hopefully pass through the House and make its way to the Senate. And that's the record and trajectory that, I bring to all of you this evening, a record of doing and delivering, of community action. I'm just so pleased and honored to work alongside all of you, a city council that boasts some fantastic talent from, the medical profession to women's rights to Ford Motor Company to technical assistance. I really want to salute each and every one of you for your community and involvement, as well as the results that you produce. I was delighted to sit down with the mayor and the coalition of I-75 corridor residents who are really made up of the best of how you want government to operate. Citizens with technical background who are talking about noise issues, bringing their background from quality engineering, sound engineering from the automotive field, and saying, hey, we think we can improve some of the noise that we are receiving from I-75. So, Mayor, I really look forward to continuing to work with you and this coalition of citizens, and in part because that is my job, to coordinate federal resources and federal response for our district, for our community, Troy being the largest community in Michigan's 11th district and in the new Oakland County seat. So not only do we want to have that rapport, but we want to be focused on results. Another thing that I think all of you will be very interested to know and hear about, I'm excited to have two bills on the House floor tomorrow, one on privacy technology and the other, as I mentioned, on fire. But But more so, importantly, several weeks ago, I received a call from the Speaker of the House inviting me to participate in the conference committee. Conference committees, again, best of government. The House and Senate come together to negotiate a final legislative bill. This is for the America Competes Act. So as we are right in the front of the supply chain issues that are continuing to ricochet as a result of COVID-19, that chip shortage, which has just been a wake-up call for all of us. I'll tell you, your Congresswoman has been a semiconductor enthusiast for the balance of a decade, coming off of my experience serving as Chief of Staff on the U.S. Auto Rescue in the administration of President Barack Obama that saw GM and Chrysler through a managed bankruptcy and the saving of 200,000 Michigan automotive jobs. And so here we sit again today, headline news focused on chips, not wanting to be overly reliant, right, on foreign markets. It's exciting and energizing to say, let's make in America, let's produce in America, but it's more complex in terms of how we co-invest and how we recruit not only production but workforce. And this is who we are, not just in Troy, but all over southeastern Michigan as an engineering hub, as an automotive hub. I think all of you know I have a program called Manufacturing Monday, 173 visits strong. You better believe, Mayor, and I know you know this, I've done some of these visits with you, the innovation, the creativity, the churning out of patents that happens in Oakland County alone is absolutely enormous. And here we sit on this beautiful spring day. I just got off of knocking doors on Biltmore Avenue before Biltmore Drive, excuse me, before I came to see you all. And it's great to see the smiling faces coming out of a long, cold winter and somewhat of a rainy spring. But I'll tell you that 2 years of a COVID-19 pandemic, when the world had to pause, when we had to shut down, and I'm the one who goes to Congress on behalf of this beautiful region we call home, and my colleagues from all over the country pulling me aside and asking, how are you doing in Michigan? We rose to the industrial call to action to source the PPE, to produce the masks and the ventilators, and deliver for this nation, all while we continue to produce electric vehicle technology, autonomous vehicle technology, the true moonshot of the 21st century, of which I am so eager to champion in the halls of Congress for all of us. And so that's also what is forthcoming from this America Competes Act legislation, investing in our STEM workforce and STEM education, women and girls, a caucus that I started in the Congress. And so I leave you with this, my friends, my colleagues, and fellow residents of the incredible city of Troy. My line remains open to you. Obviously, we are seeing a world in turmoil with a Russia war, a brutal war that has reared its head in Europe yet again. We've passed the aid for Ukraine and continue to stand for democracy and for sovereignty, but also with the bet on the American people, the bet on the American ability to innovate and the engineering success that comes from the incredible place that we call home. So thank you all so much for having me today. It's a delight to present to you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your hands-on leadership, your dedicated friendship. It is an honor to do this work alongside each and every one of you. Thank you.
Thanks, Congresswoman. You can stick around for a couple questions if we have any. Not sure we do, but
I'd be happy to take questions.
Any questions
what a delight.
Anything that wasn't, since we have our Congresswoman here? We're all in pretty regular contact with you and your team.
Sure.
So just good? All right, well, thank you for coming. Appreciate seeing you. And, City Manager Miller.
Well, we have to say thank you for the community projects funding.
Yeah, well, we haven't gotten there yet. So
yes, yeah.
Those who, we'll probably talk about those a little bit later this evening as part of our budget process and everything. But yes, thank you for advocating on behalf of the city to bring those community project dollars from Washington back into your district here in the city of Troy. We know that we're a donor city and a donor county, so it's important to be able to get some of that money back to us, tax dollars at the federal level.
You are fiscal stewards, and I will tell you, when I ran for Congress the first time, it was, we deserve our fair share of federal funding. And so being able to receive earmarks and to work alongside all of you on that has been a true success. And if you look, Michigan's 11th district received by far and away way, the most number of earmarks of any other congressional district in Michigan. And it's in part with how we work together, local government with federal government alongside state government. And so to receive the pavilion, and I was delighted to submit for Sylvan Glen, fingers crossed, hopefully that doesn't go into a 6-month continuing resolution and we can get that funded before the end of the year.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, that concludes C1, certificates of recognition and special presentations, and we have no carryover items this evening, so we'll move on to E, public hearings. We do have one public hearing this evening. It's the big one of the year. E1 is the adoption of the 2022-23 annual and 3-year city budget. It'll be introduced by City Manager Mark Miller, and also looks like Rob Malzek, as our CFO, will be taking part in that as well, or he's available, as I understand.
Yeah.
So.
Our CFO, Rob Melzek, will be available for questions. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank all of our staff, from our department heads to our line employees who participate and put this budget together. Also including specifically the finance staff who do a great amount of work. And then to finish it up, Stephanie Flesher and Beth Tashik in our office kind of puts all the boring Excel spreadsheets into a presentable document. And it's a process that takes 3, 4, 5 months. And as soon as we get done, we get into audit season and we do it all over. But I appreciate all the help that they have contributed. So as you said, Mayor, we do have a public hearing this evening for the city manager's recommended budget. What I would just say is that city council and community partners are an integral part of this process. And we've had a number of study sessions and information sessions and discussions with a variety of groups to put together this budget. And it is an outline of our direction and policies for the next year. And this budget will focus on 4 things. 1, preservation of health, safety, and welfare. 2, focus on our core facilities and infrastructure. 3, enhance building inspections, operations. And finally, and 4th, is improve city communications and engagement capabilities, which are in line with what I believe City Council, where we want to move towards, and we agree with that. So the budget is, and I know Councilwoman Hodrick will always say that people out in TV land, we've talked about this, we've had study meetings, and we've gone over this budget for the past 6, 7, 8 weeks. And there isn't usually not a lot of discussion, but there's been a lot of deliberation and input to put this together. So with that, we recommend the budget that's before you, and we've provided you a very lengthy resolution to do that. And we'll answer any questions you have.
Thanks, City Manager. I appreciate that. Before we ask any questions, I will, just to piggyback a little bit off what you just said, we had a study session, budget study session, where we went through the budget document. We've had the proposed budget with us. I think Ellen actually brought hers tonight. Good prop, Ellen. But we've gone through this, so don't think that we're approving or presumably approving a budget tonight without having an ample opportunity to really go through it. So yeah, we definitely have had that opportunity. But any questions for city management at this point? A lot of them were obviously answered during our study sessions, but go ahead, Mark.
I would just like to make a comment. We're in this new high inflationary era, and at one time, budget amendments were rare, very, very rare, and now they've become more common. And I just would like to just say that, because it's become more regular in our day-to-day life of having them, and it's even gotten to the point that we've moved them from regular business to consent in certain circumstances, just because it is becoming more common, because we have to be so flexible with the inflationary increase of costs.
Thank you for that. Any questions before I open the Councilmember Chamberlain Crango?
Thank you, Mayor. So I already asked City Manager Miller earlier this question, but thought it might be helpful to ask it here with everyone present. And just start by thanking our Congresswoman for the pavilion and for that amazing, amazing project. That is exactly in our community survey last year. Our residents said they wanted this gathering space, something like that exactly. So we thank you for fighting for us deeply. The question is, as I thought about that pavilion, this is so exciting, and we're talking in our 3-year budget about there's money appropriated going into the 2024 budget for cricket, for a cricket field, thinking about for pickleball with the pavilion. What does it look like for maintenance? How might maintenance show up? Is that something that we see already factored in our budget as we think about these new wonderful facilities, but also recognizing what does it mean for staff to actually, to care for those, the grounds and facilities sort of concern, and what might it mean for those, that element to be incorporated into the budget at some point?
It is a concern as we increase our number of facilities, being able to have enough manpower to take care of those parks and facilities. The skating in Mayor Stein Park in general probably is not large enough to tip the scales. But going forward, as we, let's say, increase facilities, we're going to have to then have at least consideration in future budget years, additional staffing to be able to maintain new parks in the future.
Any other questions before we open the public hearing? All right, I'll open the public hearing on E1. I don't see that anybody is signed up to speak, but that doesn't prohibit anyone here this evening from speaking. Anyone like to speak on this item? All right, I'll close the public hearing then. Someone like to move the resolution? Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move E1, adoption of the 2022-2023 annual and 3-year city budget as printed in the agenda.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt, supported by Councilmember Abraham, that we approve E1, adoption of the 2022-23 annual and 3-year city budget as printed in the agenda packet. Discussion. Councilmember Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the 5th budget I've seen since I was elected to City Council. It is by far the most exciting budget that we've had. We have 2 new major renovations of parks with Sylvan Glen Park and the Stein Park. Fully funding our police and fire, a lot of money going into our roads. I know we have a major renovation of Rochester Road coming up in the next 3 years that's sorely needed. I drove on it today, so glad to see that. As Councilmember Chamberlain-Kranga mentioned, we have cricket and pickleball in the 3-year budget, maybe not in the next year with all the major park renovations. And there's also the 6-year capital plan. There is a lot of Councilmember Hoderick always talks about there's a lot of planning that all our departments do when it comes to their capital maintenance, and we see a lot of it. With inflation, we have to stretch the dollars. We also have an extremely low tax rate. It's below 10 mils now, as you can see, due to Headley and Prop A. But I'm extremely excited to support this budget. There's going to be a lot of exciting ribbon cuttings this year for us and residents to enjoy, and it's a great thing, and I'm really proud of this budget.
Thank you, Councilmember Hamilton. Councilmember Chamberlain-Kranga?
Mayor Pro Tem.
Go ahead, Rebecca.
Okay. It's often said, and actually I was looking at you, Mayor Pro Tem, because you said this before. I've seen you say this before. A budget is a reflection of our values as a community and as a city. And for me, one of those lead values has always been respecting our residents and putting our residents first. I've been engaging this budget process since around 2016, and when I was a part of the old financial ideas team that the city used to have. And I think of any budget, this has been a budget where it is so clear that we have put our residents first. And I say that if we just look at ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act dollars. In our survey last year, our residents were clear. Number one, their number one priority is public safety, is that we invest in our police and our fire departments for the health, safety, and welfare of our community. And we've done that. If you look at just ARPA, we're putting our money into a new fire truck for the life and property of our city to protect that. Number one. Number two, our residents have said green space and parks. We're putting ARPA dollars exactly into that, into parks. And number three, we have heard clearly that in that survey, our residents want us to focus on those road conditions, fix those darn roads as we often hear. And we're doing exactly that with those ARPA dollars. So I am so proud of any budget I have followed. This budget has so clearly tracked with everything our residents have said that they wanted. So I am so proud to support it, and I thank you so much to our city management and all of the staff who poured hours and hours, and looking at Rob, hours and hours into this. So thank you, and all of you who are here, you're here tonight on a beautiful Monday, so thank you so much for everything.
Thank you, Councilmember Chamberlain-Kranga. Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt.
Thank you, Mayor. I just briefly want to echo City Manager Mark Miller's gratitude to everyone in the city who's worked hard on this budget. If you were one of the fortunate people who, like us, got to read through those hundreds of pages, you can tell how much thought and hard work went into putting together a budget that is responsible, but also, as Councilmember Hamilton said, brings new and exciting things. I want to also echo the thank you to our Congresswoman Haley Stevens for helping to fund some exciting things on that new budget. As the mayor mentioned, Troy sends a lot more money to Washington, D.C. and Lansing than we get back, and it's nice that you're working hard to try to bring some of that money back to us. We regularly have people come in here and say, we need this recreational facility, or we need this sidewalk, or we need all of these things. And we definitely do listen to the people that come and express their passion for things in Troy. But it's also important to remember that we already have a lot of assets in this city, and we need to protect those assets, we need to repair them, we need to maintain them. And one of the not as, conventionally exciting things about this budget, but it's something that really excites me, is to see how much we're investing in our existing assets like Sylvan Glen Park. So I'm very happy to approve this budget and look forward to great things over the next few years.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt. Councilmember Abraham.
Thank you, Mayor. Even though this is a budget that looks 3 years ahead, I take budget season as an opportunity to be retrospective. I've been following the budget since about 2010, well before I was actually sitting here at the council table. And I think we all recall in 2010, we were in the middle of the Great Recession. The city revenues were plummeting. City staff was slashed by a third. We are only now just getting back to that same revenue level that we were in 2010. And this isn't adjusted over, net present value. They're just the hard numbers. And I think we all know, having shopped at Kroger recently, that our dollar doesn't go quite as far as it used to. And so when I look at this budget, it's a tremendous accomplishment. And it's an accomplishment that was built off the sacrifices and the hard decisions made starting 12 years ago, even before then, really. Because when you look at this document, it's not just maintaining what we've had and keeping it in okay condition. It's continuing to fund at the highest level things like our fire, safety, and public works, which we know our residents, our businesses depend on. It's increasing the recreational offerings to the city. It's making our parks, our green spaces, that much more accessible to our residents. It's taking all of those things that our residents have told us over the past 10 years when times were tough, and now are still tough, but maybe not quite in the same way as it was in 2010, and we're delivering on them. Promises made even years ago have not been forgotten. They live on, and they live on in this 400-page budget that we have before us today that weighs at least 4 pounds. It's a tremendous body of work that I thank our city staff for, and I thank preceding councils for, because it laid the foundation for what we have today, where we're in a position where we can take the ARPA dollars that we've gotten, thank you, Congresswoman Stevens, to do something transformational in a way that will live on in this community for decades to come. I am so proud of this budget and the work that's gone into it. Council may approve it, but it's staff that put it together over many, many months. And it's our residents that contributed to it over many years with their feedback, and we're listening. I'm very pleased to support this budget tonight and thank everyone who has contributed to it. It's a great body of work.
Thank you, Councilmember Abraham. Councilmember Brooks?
Thank you, Mayor Baker. I echo the sentiments of many of my colleagues here. As was stated, a budget does reflect the values and priorities, and this budget for the city is no different. We have performed community surveys and reached out to our community, and the feedback has been consistent. Our residents value our schools, our public safety, and our parks. Our 3-year budget is in line with what our residents want. If you look at it, the majority of our tax revenue is allocated to our schools, our public safety, and our parks and recreation. In addition, we are excited about the Stein Park, thanks in large part to Congresswoman Stevens. This will serve as a gathering point for our community and will bring further value to our city. The financials of our city are very sound and we are fiscally responsible, but we do have some longer-term considerations, including inflation, the rising costs of goods and services, as well as the serious need for funding for our capital projects. And we have to be mindful of the fact that our city finances have been helped by the injection of money from the state and federal government, and we can't rely on these resources for long-term revenue. But however, this 3-year budget is very sound, and I am pleased to support it. I thank you very much to CFO Malzek, all of our city staff and administration who have spent countless hours working on this budget, so I am very pleased to support it.
Thank you, Councilmember Brooks. Councilmember Hoderick?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilwoman Abraham mentioned going back 12 years, and we tend to bring that perspective to the table. Always mindful we don't want to be an anchor and we don't want it to be baggage, but we want to be mindful, as we heard in our invocation tonight, of being wise. And I wish to thank my colleagues for looking for what is it we learned, what is it we went through. There's a lot of that has gone on with this council. Our predecessors, those councils that preceded us, made really tough decisions that were very fiscally responsible and protected, what am I going to say, our AAA bond rating. And CFO is back there nodding at me. And we are stewards of carrying and building upon the very sound decisions, though difficult at the time, and we're doing it. Looking back a bit as well, several of us know and participated in this council in what is, it's hard to understand until you're in this seat, but the council manager form of government isn't as easy to practice as it might seem on paper. We saw when that kind of went a little south for a few years here in Troy. And what we're experiencing and what our residents and businesses are seeing here in Troy now, and I say this humbly, is we have re-embraced what our charter calls for in terms of how we function as a council manager form of government. As a council, we're defining the policy, we're defining the what, we're trying to be the voice of the residents and bring those perspectives in. And then we look to the city manager, our city attorney, and all the staff that work so well together with them to help us figure out the how, and to also give us the perspective of time out, here's some things we need to consider. I think it's important to understand we are back in that place where we're functioning in the ways that our government, it's government working well on behalf of everyone. This budget also reflects the perspective and the input of residents that we've heard from over many years. I think back to even 20 years ago, some of the dreams and the vision that residents had, and they've been repeated. They came to us through engagement sessions we've had at the Civic Center, and here now in this budget, and we gave the input to our Congresswoman, and she heard us. She reached out to us and heard us, that it wasn't just city manager and city council providing that feedback of this is a place that can serve all of our community. This was on based on the input and the foundational ideas of many residents over many years, consistently conveying that to us. This is the way it should feel when we're doing government all together. This is the way it should work. It's messy, it's not perfect, not everybody's going to be happy with everything, but we're doing our best to do that collective prioritization and deliver. It is a big, heavy document. It sat on my coffee table, my dining room table. Every now and again, something would come to mind. I'd open it up, and sure enough, it had been captured. When I looked at it closely, staff already had that thought or that idea captured in there. We have a CFO working with us who brings us both private and public sector experience. And I think there's tremendous value in that, and I really appreciate that. So, of course, I'm going to be supporting the budget as well. And sorry for the history lessons, but we've got Councilman Hamilton who comes in and nerds out on the numbers with a fresh eye, and we have the historical perspective. We have a mayor that's everywhere in the community. People ask me all the time, how does he do that? How is he everywhere? I don't know, but he is. And it's all of these things, it's many, many things, factors coming together that give us a policy document for going forward. And I'm excited to approve this budget this year. Working together well serves everybody well, and I think that's what we've achieved here. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilmember Hoderick. I don't do brief, I'll try. Everyone knows that. We kind of went from shorter to longer to, here we are. But listen, so much of what I would normally say has kind of already been said, and I think that it's indicative of a council that is fairly cohesive and working together with city management to achieve the policy goals of the city based on not just what we think, but what our residents are telling us. We've all kind of spoken about how we're really driven by what our residents are saying, and we've done a lot of additional kind of community engagement type things over the past year or so, whether that's surveys, whether that's actually talking to people as people have came out of their houses and were more willing to be talked to. And you know, this budget absolutely reflects the values of what our residents are asking for, whether that's public safety, which always is our first thing. I mean, I feel silly saying anything but public safety first. I always want to make sure everybody knows that public safety is top of mind for us always. But then it does go into the more quality of life, feel-good type things, the parks, the recreation, and how we approach those different things. We are extremely fortunate this year to have the opportunity to make some big capital investments because of dollars we're getting from Washington. So again, I thank Congresswoman Stevens for the pavilion money, but also for your work with ARPA to get that money to us, because without that, this budget would look very different. So thank you for that on behalf of the residents of this city. A couple of people have said excited about this budget. It seems silly to say excited, but I'm also excited because past two budgets have been kind of what I flippantly referred to as status quo budgets early on in COVID. And you know, that is kind of what they were. We kept the lights on, we kept everything going, but we didn't make any big, exciting things. And here we are this year having that opportunity to do that. And you know, I-9 tonight is a budget item is a regular business item that talks about the expansion of the Gene M. Stein Community Park with the ice rink and this pavilion, the project. You're going to see some really exciting visuals of what that we're hoping we can achieve. And it's a great thing for our community, who has said for years prior to this budget, we don't have a community gathering place like we want. You know, we want our civic center property to be a place that we can all go to as a community and use that for park facilities, use it for meetings, use it for concerts, farmers markets, things of that nature. Really great community spaces. So we're making big advances of that with this budget. I was really taken by Felix's invocation tonight when he's talking about not just numbers on the spreadsheet, but remembering that those are people behind those numbers, right? Councilman Hoderick talks a lot about, you know, the value and the issues potentially with spreadsheet type governance, right? It's really, you have to look at the numbers, right, Rob? The numbers matter, but we represent the people. And so we have to, all those numbers do have a face, about 87,000 people, right? And they're our residents' tax dollars, they're our tax dollars as residents. So we really have to think about how that affects each and everybody's daily lives. And I'm, again, very pleased with what we are presented from the city manager's office and from the entire city staff that I know has worked really hard at this. Having some experience with budgets from previous administration, when I first got on council, you don't really know better, right? You get a budget proposed from city management. Wasn't this city manager? Okay, you learn about the numbers. You're told kind of what you want to be told, I guess, and you approve the budget, and we did some good things back then. But to see that how the process is working now, a little bit to what Ellen was talking about with the form of government, I really see the difference in what's happening now in City Hall versus what was happening 5-6 years ago. And we did have a November advance meeting where we talked about this budget 6 months ago, that was. And so we were involved 6 months ago, which was a new addition for this process this year. I think we can continue to fine tune that process, as we've said before. But this is, for us, at least 6 months in the making on these actual projects. But really, it's a year-round effort for city staff, for city management, and even for us as representatives of the residents, because we hear from them throughout the year about certain things. I've often said at budget approval time, it's the most important thing we do as a body is to approve this budget. And I can't believe it's here already. The good news is it looks like it's going to pass tonight, Mark. The bad news is you start on next year's tomorrow. So it's kind of how it works. But I'm really thankful. This policy document that we've set the policy, city management has come up with a plan to implement those policies, is on our website already. It'll be approved. As residents, check it out. It's actually fairly, although it's lengthy and has spreadsheets, the early pages are pretty good to read. It's a good read, good summary, but learn about it. Obviously, I'll be talking about more specific projects that are in this budget at the State of the City address in 9 days, May 18th. I'll talk about that a little bit in council comments. But again, I do want to thank you, Mark, and everybody in city staff who's worked really hard to give this budget to us, to help us understand where we need to understand what maybe some of our shortcomings are, where we need to look in the future, and also to really listen to the residents and provide them with some good, exciting capital projects, quality of life initiatives, and things that are really going to make a difference in our community. So I, of course, am happy to support this evening. And with that, I will ask for the vote. Ms. Stewart.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Krianga?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes. Motion carries. That concludes our public hearings this evening. Again, thank you, Mark and team and everybody. Next up is public comment for items on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. No one has signed up this evening, so there will be no need for reply either. There are no postponed items this evening, so we move on to regular business. There are no I-1 is board and committee appointments. There are no mayoral appointments this evening or city council appointments. So we move on to I-2, board and committee nominations. I have no nominations this evening. Neither does Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt. There is no request for a closed session. So this time I'd actually like to seek consensus from council. I'd make a motion to advance item, excuse me for 1 second, I-8 to the present time, which is the confirmation of our new fire chief, Pete Hollinger. Is there consensus? Do you need an actual vote, Cheryl, Lori? Or can we consensus to do that?
I think consensus is...
All right. I saw 7 nodding heads. So at this time, we'll go ahead and do I-8, which is the confirmation of appointment of Peter Hollinger to fire chief, and that'll be introduced by our city manager, Mark Miller.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The city charter dictates that the city manager hires and appoints the fire chief, and city council affirms that decision. So the resolution doing that is before you this evening.
Sorry, Mark. Thank you. I appreciate that. Looks like you have some friends here, Pete. Or I hope. I think that's why they're here. Yeah. All right. Well, I'll move I-8, confirmation of appointment of Peter Hollinger to fire chief, as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Hamilton, that we approve I-8, confirmation of appointment of Peter Hollinger to fire chief. Any discussion? Well, yeah. I heard it's about time. Well, I will just say, obviously, it looks like some friends from Station 6 are here, Pete. That looks like that's a good thing for you. That means you've got some good support. We know you've been in the department a long time, first as a volunteer, now here, obviously in the paid side. It's exciting, obviously, for you, for your family. We have a former police chief here in your family, which we didn't know about. So, former police chief Carrie, welcome. Good to see you. Glad to have you in here. I'm excited about this for you. It's going to be a good thing. We've had a couple fire chiefs that I've been part of, and I'm excited to get to see you be promoted, and really also nice to meet your family this evening and to have your friends from Station 6. I think that's, again, like I said, says a lot about who you are and how much they already have a good amount of care and appreciation for what you do. So congratulations. Well, preliminary congratulations, I guess. All right, the vote, Ms. Stewart?
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krianga?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Motion carries, and congratulations.
I feel like there should be a picture
Yeah, I'm gonna
after a break.
I'm going to take a 5-minute recess because it's going to be very disruptive otherwise. But let's go ahead and maybe do some pictures and such, but we'll take 5 minutes, everybody.
Hope there's no fires.
Formal, like, picture thing or something. I don't know how many do proclamations.
All right, back on the record here. We'll move. I-4 is up next. Approval of the Troy Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, TBRA, proposed fiscal year 2022, 23, and 3-year budget, introduced also by City Manager Mark Miller.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. Hopefully this is the last year I can present this to council, and Mark Adams, the Economic Development Manager, will be presenting this next year and taking over the responsibility of this. The one thing I would like to note about the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority is that the loan for MJR Theaters paid off, so it took 7-8 years for those eligible expenditures to get covered by the increased tax capture, and that's a good thing, and all the money that we pay back goes in the revolving loan fund, which Mark can look to find a developer in a major brownfield project where we could use that as a loan. With that being said, just as a reminder, the brownfields are based upon individual properties, and the capture occurs just on that property, then is reinvested to pay for eligible expenditures, either for demolition for obsolete properties or for brownfield cleanup. And the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority did recommend approval of this budget, and we recommend approval too.
Thank you, City Manager Miller. Any questions? Councilmember Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor. Mark, is there any update on the Harrison apartments?
Well, Brent Savidan's in the audience. He could probably tell me better where they're at in Salim.
I think I've asked this every time we did this the last couple of years. I know it's during COVID time.
We're projecting that there will be capture in coming years, so
Okay.
construction should be moving along.
The owner of Harrison Apartments has submitted a revised preliminary site plan a number of times. Keeps tweaking it enough that it has to be reviewed, and they were granted administrative preliminary site plan approval a few months ago, and the ball's in their court.
Okay, and you said they were like truncating the amount of units?
Yeah, every time it comes back, he seems to lop off a few more units, but it's still a significant development that we're looking forward to having online.
Yep, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Hamilton. Any other questions about Brownfield? You want to move it? Anyone want to move the resolution? Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Gall?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move I-4, approval of the Troy Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, TBRA, proposed fiscal year 2022, 2023, and 3-year budget as printed in the agenda.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt, supported by Councilmember Chamberlain Kranga, that we approve I-4, approval of the Troy Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, TBRA, proposed fiscal year 2022, 23, and 3-year budget as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Stewart.
Councilmember Chamberlain Craig.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt.
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton.
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick.
Yes.
Mayor Baker.
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham.
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks.
Yes.
Motion carries. Next up is I-5, approval of the Joint Local Development Finance Authority Troy Subcommittee, proposed fiscal year 2022, 23, and 3-year budget, also introduced by City Manager Miller.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. The Troy portion of the Local Development Finance Authority did recommend approval of this budget. Just as a reminder, the 60% of the revenues are used for support of Automation Alley, the reason why this Automation Alley Smart Zone was created. And uniquely, when the state changed and did not tax personal property for computers, we received $40,000 a year from the state, which is different from the past. And the only other thing I would note is that a portion of the revenues is designated for infrastructure repairs, and we're looking at doing roads in that general area and adding it to the capital fund. So we recommend approval of this, and this body will continue to approximately 2030.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilmember Chamberlain Kranga.
Thank you, Mayor. So whenever it comes to the LDFA, I'm always reminded of new questions I have around it, and I had forgotten about the Smart Zone, where it was. And so I found it online and recognized that with the Smart Zone, you have, and I believe that's the TIF revenue is going towards helping with like marketing and infrastructure within that Smart Zone. Is that something, that TIF revenue, does it go back to Automation Alley and they sort of they then use it for the infrastructure support or marketing, and it comes back to the smart zone, or is it something we administer,
So
the city?
technically, there is a governmental entity called the Automation Alley Smart Zone Local Development Finance Authority. It's a creation of the city through state law. And that authority receives those revenues, and we manage it with our city staff. And a major portion of that is then given back to Automation Alley, and it's about, in the next year, about $119,000 for operations. And then we give to Automation Alley approximately $17,000 as a foundation membership, which is we call marketing. And then we actually put money into our capital plan for the road improvements. But in the previous 3 years, we helped repair their driveway. So we made payments in those previous years, we made payments directly to Automation Alley once they had the construction of that parking lot.
Thank you.
So ultimately, we control the dollars, being the staff through the authority.
Any other questions? Councilmember Hoderick?
Should I move?
Please.
I'd like to move I-5, approval of the Joint Local Development Finance Authority Troy Subcommittee proposed fiscal year 2022-23 and 3-year budget as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Hoderick, supported by Councilmember Brooks, that we approve I-5, approval of the Joint Local Development Finance Authority Troy Subcommittee, proposed fiscal year 2022-23 and 3-year budget, as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? I'll just add that we are so lucky and fortunate to have Automation Alley in the city of Troy. I think we don't often talk about the wonderful and amazing things they're doing. Another teaser, I'll talk a little bit about them in the State of the City next week. But, these LDFA meetings, they're on our YouTube. It's always, and they're not very long, so it's a good informational thing. I mean, they're twice a year. So I would always recommend anyone interested in that specific group to check out the meetings, because you get some great updates from Tom Kelly at Automation Alley, and also hear a little bit about it. So with that, I'll ask for the vote. Ms. Stewart?
Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt,
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton,
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick,
Yes.
Mayor Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham,
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krianga.
Yes.
Motion carries. Next up, I-6, approval of the Troy Downtown Development Finance Authority, TDDA, proposed fiscal year 2022-23 and 3-year budget. And Mark?
Thank you, Mayor. The Downtown Development Authority is actually in a very, very good position. As you may recall, in the previous fiscal years, we did receive over $4 million from the Forbes companies for a repayment going back to the 90s for a parking deck that was built. We took just over $3 million of those dollars and wrote down the debt of the DDA and refinanced. And that gave us an opportunity then to actually have quite a bit of savings. So we have just under $1 million a year of revenue. So therefore, at the end of this 3-year budget cycle, 2025, the DDA will have $6 million in fund balance, which is really getting up there. So this budget does include funds for maintenance of the median, but also the design and development of the future landscaping improvements, which are not even designed yet, which we're in the early stages, which you've received an update 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. So this budget continues in this fashion, and the DDA did recommend approval, and staff recommends approval also.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilmember Hamilton?
More a comment, but just this, earlier Councilmember Hoderick mentioned our AAA bond rating, and this budget for the DDA is an example of the power of our AAA bond rating. Because we were able to refinance the DDA bonds, we're going to save nearly over $3 million on interest over the remaining life of the DDA, and now we can use that to help enhance the DDA further over the next few years. So a AAA bond rating is such an essential tool for things like this, to keep our taxes low and be able to fund amazing things like this.
Thank you. Councilmember Chamberlain Krianga?
I do have a question. It just escaped me for a second. So I looked at the marketing under district promotion. It looks like, if it's correct, no money was put towards the district promotion this year. Is that correct?
there was money budgeted, but we did not have any expenditures.
Right,
There's
right. And so is there a vision going forward? I know I often ask that when it comes up. Is that something that's still kind of top of mind moving forward of how that 25K might be?
Yeah, there's been considered discussion at the DDA level about what to do. During COVID, it sort of looked at some options, but then that wasn't really dealing with the issues overall. But we are continuing to look at what to do for the DDA, and now that Mark Adams is on staff, he can help contribute to that future direction.
Other quick questions, just to remind me, the Citizens Council, Advisory Council that's going to be set up, can you remind me when that happens? I think we do have the 100 people in the district, and how does that manage? Does that, Chairman Corlick, does he run that, or is it you have a different chairperson for that?
City Attorney Bloom.
I can answer that. I didn't have a chance to look at it beforehand, but the Citizens Council will need to be formed before there is any action taken. So at this point in time, we don't have a plan to present to the DDA, but the Citizens Council will need to at least have an opportunity to review and make a recommendation prior to that. So that is something that we will need to be getting members. Unfortunately, it's just one more thing that council members, and I think I can't remember if it's the mayor or the mayor pro tem who has the responsibility for soliciting members for that, but it is something that we do need to start working on.
I think it's a council-appointed body from what previous questions, but I've made some contacts with the people of Zen Apartments, so we'll work together to get some people involved. Shockingly, people aren't jumping out of their seats to come volunteer, but we'll give them something and a good, exciting reason to do it, and maybe we'll see. But just to follow up on that, City Attorney Bloom, I know you didn't look at it beforehand, but just to clarify again, so before a plan is presented to the DDA, when you say plan, can you just say what that means a little bit more?
Sure. The DDA is required to follow a tax increment financing plan and a development plan. And so it's likely that there will be some proposed changes to that plan with the landscaping that is being considered now. And if that's the case, then it should go to the Citizens Council before for a recommendation. It's not a binding decision, it's a recommendation.
Thank you. Any other questions? Someone want to move I-6? Councilmember Hamilton?
I'll move I-6, approval of the Troy Downtown Development Finance Authority, TDDA, proposed fiscal year 2022-23 and 3-year budget as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Hamilton, supported by Councilmember Chamberlain Krianga, that we approve I-6, approval of the Troy Downtown Development Finance Authority, TDDA, proposed fiscal year 2022, 23, and 3-year budget as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? I have to vote, Ms. Stewart.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krianga?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Gall?
Yes.
Motion carries. Next up is I-7, amendment to Chapter 20 of the Troy City Code, water and sanitary sewer rates. That'll be introduced by our CFO, Rob Malzig. Hi, Rob.
Hi. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. This is our annual update of our Chapter 20 water rates and sewer rates. This year, I'm pleased to announce that it's going up 3.9%, which is below inflation. And what this is truly a pass-through for the costs that we get from Great Lakes Water. The latest rates we've gotten from them is that our sewer rates are going up 6% and our water's 3.4%. That was passed through across. So we're actually going to be going into a little bit into fund balance to cover those rates for this year. But Paul Trasper, Kurt Bovenseat, myself, and Kyle Veith, the four of us did a lot of analysis on our cash flow needs, our reserve balances, and we think we're in really good shape. And that's why we come to you guys today with a 3.9% increase.
Thank you, Rob. Any questions? I'll just ask, you just said it, but I want to clarify. These rates are pretty much essentially determined by GLEWA because we pass through to them, right? We're not collecting any extra money from that increase. That's just to cover the cost of what we're being charged for the water, correct?
Absolutely. You got it.
Okay, thank you. I'll move I-7, amendment to Chapter 20 of the Troy City Code as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Hoderick, that we approve I-7, amendment to Chapter 20 of the Troy City Code as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? Vote, Ms. Stewart.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krianga?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, council.
Next up is I-9, Standard Purchasing Resolution 5, Approval to Expend Budgeted Funds. Troy Civic Center Pavilion Schematic Design, and that'll be introduced by Public Works Director Kurt Bovenseep.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I did recognize that I was a little presumptuous when I asked City Manager Miller to put this on the agenda on the same night that Council was being asked to approve the budget. But I am also very excited about this project and couldn't wait any longer to get started on it. So, just as a reminder, this is a seed that was planted long ago. It was a seed planted by the Troy Community Foundation that actually had the idea of creating a pavilion, although there was a lot of work before that suggested that the Civic Center campus should remain civically orientated. So I think it was November of 2020 when City Manager Miller called up and said there's a funding opportunity through the community project funding through Congresswoman Stevens, and we should submit our pavilion idea, and we did, and it's really have evolved since November 2020, as you could imagine. So I'd like to take this opportunity and provide some conceptual designs that we've been working on for some time with OHM. So one great thing about OHM consultants is they always start every project with goals and objectives, and we have these guiding principles that we follow throughout the entire process. And as you can see, they're in line with a lot of what you said so elegantly earlier with the budget and in response to the citizens that we have engaged over the many years in regards to the Civic Center property. This is a desire that the community has asked for, several surveys. It's a space where, as you once said, that we could all come together, and that's the intent of it, and that's been our guiding principle as we go through the conceptual design of this project. So when we look at images to kind of inspire us as we conceptually design this, we looked at some other areas throughout the country that have similar aspects or similar amenities, and these images really what inspired us to design what we're going to present tonight. And along with those designs, staff and OHM went throughout the Metro Detroit region and visited a lot of different sites that had similar amenities. And we talked to the facility managers about what's the do's and don'ts or what they would change if they had to do it again. So that was really essential in developing this. Here we've chosen that we looked at the entire Civic Center property and we thought it was best suited as an extension of the Gene M. Stein Community Park. So this is at the corner of Town Center and Civic Center Drive, kind of where the sculpture from Kmart is, right there. So through the feasibility study, we looked at to make sure there was enough land to be able to fit everything in there. And we came up with a design to be able to tailor to that area. Again, this is probably design number 22, but we wanted to show council what we've officially came up with as we move into the design phase. So some elements as we were walking through the conceptual design is we wanted it to be very impactful, and we wanted it to be very pedestrian orientated and make it interchangeable. The use should be interchangeable to a lot of different activities because we want this to be a four-season area that can be used. So as an example, these aren't specific features that we're going to have in, like we didn't choose the lighting yet, we're not there yet, but the idea of having the Bolliard lighting also be a seating area just identifies that versatility, having the overhead lights, so making sure that we can function during the night, having all the amenities to be able to make it suitable for any occasion. When we looked at the pavilion, we talked to Sterling Heights and Dodge Park about their pavilion. We went to Farmington Hills. We talked to their pavilion, people who manage their pavilion. And we came up with a design that it needs to be open and it needs to be accessible. So the dashed lines you see there is actually the roof, the roof line. So although it does appear where the Great Hall and the seating area is that's the only covered area, the covered area is the entire dashed line. So we have some great opportunity to do different programs in there, and we have concessions and equipment storage for ice skate rental or any other rentals that we would like to do out of the pavilion. So a couple perspectives. Again, these are just concepts. We're not choosing what types of flowers or what types of trees. This is just to get us all ramped up and ready to go and design. This view here, if you were to look past it, you would be looking at the library. So in the background would be the library. This would be entering the pavilion area, the drop-off area. Here's a closer view to the ice skating ribbon. To the left there, the building, that was Zamboni storage, but we also wanted to make sure that it was functional. So maybe one day we'll put a video screen on that wall where we could have do movies or entertainment while people use the pavilion area. And this perspective, again, is standing underneath the pavilion, looking at the ice skating ribbon. This would be looking directly south. And then if you were to look further past the concept design here, you'd be looking directly into the Gene M. Stein Park. So to the left would be the pavilion, and you can see how that openness and the roof line, it complements the community center design. It complements a lot of architectural that's already in the Civic Center complex. And then here is standing directly at the corner of Civic Center and Town Center, looking down both sidewalks. And then an image of what it might look like in the wintertime, minus the leaves on the tree. I don't know if their program could not do that, but a feature that we're really interested in is having this tunnel of lights. Having the tunnel of lights is an attraction as you go around the ribbon. And here we have a very, very aggressive time frame. And this is one of the reasons why I'm presenting this tonight, is because in order to meet hopefully a opening of October 2023, we do need to begin our design efforts now. So tonight before you is a contract, one of the first of many you'll see with OHM, to start the design phase so we can actually take this concept and start doing the actual architecture, start selecting materials. One thing that we'll be concentrating on when we look at the landscaping is how it ties in with our efforts with the DDA landscaping, that consistency through nature theme, and making sure that those go together. And it's really nice to have OHM on both projects because there's communication between both teams, because there are two different teams working on each one of the projects. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Kurt. Questions before comments? Councilmember Chamberlain-Cranka.
Mayor, as I was looking at this may not overlap at all. I know that we're launching the park, what is it, in 2 weeks or so, which is so exciting. I know we're slated to, as far as I know, open up the farmers market this summer. Is there going to be anything that might get in the way of the farmers market as we're trying to do, get this off the ground, or is it they won't interfere with each other?
I'm hopeful that the Gene M. Stein Park, as we know it today, will be able to continue to host events while the corner is under construction. There might be a little bit disruption, but part of the bid package will be to make sure that the contractor recognizes that we want to continue to host events in the Gene M. Stein Park as it stands today.
Good question. Any other questions? Councilmember Hoderick. Please do.
I will move I-9, Standard Purchasing Resolution 5, approval to expend budgeted funds, Troy Civic Center Pavilion schematic design as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Hoderick, supported by Councilmember Abraham, that we approve I-9 Standard Purchasing Resolution 5, approval to expend newly approved budgeted funds, Troy Civic Center Pavilion schematic design as printed in the agenda packet. Discussion. Mark, you're full of discussion tonight. Go ahead. You go first.
I just want to make sure council is aware that the corporate head will have to be moved for this. And we have not decided or even have a recommendation But we've actually identified a pretty good site along Big Beaver on a piece of property the city owns where we may be able to move it to, so that it would be in a prominent location along Big Beaver. So we'd have a sculpture that is seen by literally 100,000 people a day. But once we get to that point, we'll let you know.
All right, thanks. Go ahead, Ellen.
A couple weeks ago, there was a Troy Chamber event where we had economic development discussions. And, we often, when you live here for a long time in Troy, we tend to beat ourselves up. And we talk about how we don't have a downtown. And it was interesting to have an outside perspective. One of the directors from the Michigan Economic Development Corporation was there, and after the event, we were chatting, and I was talking about the NFL draft coming to the metro area and how our hospitality committee of our Troy Chamber is geared up, and we will be a major player in helping that be a success for the Detroit area. And I said, we don't have a downtown, and she interrupted me and said, "Oh, but you have all that going on Big Beaver. That's so unique, that is so special to Troy, and don't ever underestimate the value of that to the state, to the region, to being an entree and a gateway for when people visit." And what's exciting about this to me is, together with the visioning we've been doing for the DDA, all of a sudden I'm looking at her and I'm thinking, yeah, we've got it going on here, and we have a vision that we're starting to implement. We've long had a vision for years and years and years in this community to do things on our civic center, to even improve on Big Beaver there, and it's knitting together. So yes, you were presumptuous to ask for this to be on the agenda, but that is agile government, seizing a time frame, recognizing we're on deadlines. We're on a timing to make sure we affect this properly. So I'm glad you did. And I say some of this to residents who are watching, if anybody is on this beautiful summer or spring night, but the potential here for what can be realized for our community, a four-season area, it can be missed in our day-to-day living, what we have going on, and to have that outsider kind of almost slap me upside the head and say, "Oh, but you have something more unique and better," is something I just wanted to share with everyone. And this is consistent with improving that. And so it's really a wonderful opportunity. So, of course, we'll be supporting it.
Councilmember Hamilton?
I don't have much to follow up with that, but it's just, it was stunning. Like, I think I've lived here almost my whole life, and especially in the winter, there's really been no place for our community to gather. And to see something like that in Troy is just incredible. And I'm really excited for this.
Thanks, David. Councilmember Abraham?
I can't wait for this to open up.
Yeah.
You're showing the images, and I'm picturing Winter Wonderland 2023. Santa comes in, and there's all activities for kids and adults of all ages, and this just is such a natural fit. I'm thinking about the summer concert series. I'm thinking about the farmers market. It all fits. This is the destination that our community's been yearning for so long. And even though it's just a concept, you can see Troy in it very clearly. You can see our residents enjoying it. I'm not much of a winter outdoor person, but I'd go out in the winter to enjoy the activities there. It's something that will be a draw, not just for our residents, but for the region. It will bring the community together, and it'll bring our neighbors together. I'm so excited about this. I'm looking at October of 2023. I have that timeline burned into my head now, Kurt. I'm gonna be asking about it all the time. I'm looking forward to to being at this ribbon cutting, and I'm not at ribbon cuttings very often. I'll be at this ribbon cutting in a year and a half. So I will absolutely be supporting this tonight.
Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Gall.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you so much, and Mark and everybody and who has had a hand making this happen. I, not too long ago, heard a criticism of City Council, someone in our community, unfortunately someone but a prominent member of our community, who said that we lack vision. And I don't think our city lacks vision. I think our city is showing that we have the vision to do what our residents are asking us to do. And this is what they've asked us to do. They've asked us to bring more public spaces, bring more winter activities, and we're delivering. That's, you know, to me, as Councilmember Hoderick said, this is a beautiful vision of what Troy can be. And I'm very excited to support this, and I just might have to learn how to ice skate.
That's my problem. Big scissors and skates when you don't skate is a bad sign, a bad look, but trying to figure it out. Well,
I guess I'll.
go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Yeah.
I also want to echo the thoughts of my fellow council members. It's very exciting to see, you know, this schematic project, and what I really like is the thought about the connectivity between the downtown, the DDA, and the pavilion area. So I think that's really, really great, because we know, you know, walkability and being outdoors and all of those kinds of things are very, very important to our residents. So I really like the thought of really integrating all of it together and thinking of it not just an isolated unit, but how everything is kind of connected throughout the city. So I really do appreciate that.
Thank you, Councilmember Brooks. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Thank you, Mayor. I remember when we had the Advent session, and actually it was Rob Melzick, you brought this up about, you know, as we think about ARPA coming and, you know, hoping that our Congresswomen, we would get those funds, and we did, and we're grateful for them. We could either, you know, this could be a chance to do something truly transformative. And of course, there are a lot of needs of what we could have put that money towards. And I think that out of that conversation, it was unanimous. And, you know, as Councilmember Hoderick, who has a history in the city, and as you shared, you know, residents have talked about this for ages and ages. And I loved in this memo, you went back to the Green Space Subcommittee, and, you know, that this has been talked about for a long, long time. And even new residents, I speak to a lot of new moms and families in my neighborhood, the way that they're asking for this. And so the way that this is all coming together is really exciting. And I think some know I've been an advocate for placemaking. And there's a way that all of this is sort of placemaking, what we're doing. But also even in the midst of that, stringing lights or those amazing lights. Gosh, I've not seen any city with anything like that. And to think that this is going to come to Troy is just, it's spectacular. It's amazing. So I just thank everyone for the vision. And I do see more placemaking. I do see how we can add in like a giant chess set here and there, and just all seasons encourage people to linger. So I'm looking forward to it, and it's just spectacular. So thank you, everyone.
I'm sitting here, okay. The night I got sworn in, I was grinning up here like an idiot. My wife told me later. And tonight I'm watching this presentation, I'm smiling the same way, thinking, I think I haven't, I mean, we do good stuff up here in the city, and you do a lot of work, but this is very exciting. And, you know, coming out of 2 years of a lot of negativity in the world and the country with COVID and everything, it's nice to have something to be excited about and to look forward to. And something that is a long time coming, a diverse in every way group of people have supported this idea in one way or another. The ideas have come from them over the years. I wish that the charter amendment people of 2017 could have known that this is what would end up going here. I think it would have caused, or would have given them a lot more peace, knowing 4 or 5 years ago, that this is where we'd end up eventually being, right? So I feel a lot of relief for that, and joy just knowing that those people, especially who have very valid concerns about the use of our civic center, can rest easier. And also that this is part of economic development. It's a different kind of economic development, but it activates our civic center 7 days a week in a way that it's never been, although we have our library 7 days now. But it will bring people to the region. It will, the Somerset Collection, they are very supportive of this concept. They know what it'll do for that area in general. And so Kurt, I know that you've worked a lot on this project, and I appreciate all the work you've done. Obviously, it's not just you. Mark, and everything that's happening with this has been, I'm sure, sometimes very frustrating and sometimes very exciting. So we're at an exciting point tonight. You've got a timeline you've got to work with, which is, we know how timelines have gone in the world these days. But I can't stress enough how exciting it is to see this plan actually really taking feet tonight and really getting that process going. I'm thankful we have OHM working so hard on it. I know they've done great work with the DDA work, and to integrate that is another wonderful benefit of it. And also, I love that, we didn't really talk about it tonight, but the concepts you're showing tonight, there's always room for more and other things as the city evolves and the process evolves, which I think is another good thing too. We have room to grow and add new things, and whether that's performing arts in some respect or chess, we'll be the chess capital of the Midwest. Let's do it. My point is there's room to change. This isn't a static thing that's going to, once it's done, it's done. It can continue to grow and meet the needs of our residents and community. So I'm very excited about it, and we'll all be looking for updates all the time. Sorry to tell everybody. But with that, I will ask for the vote from Ms. Stewart.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Creighanga?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Motion carries. The equally exciting I-10 bid waiver for fleet vehicle purchases is up next. We have Kurt as well. Go ahead, Kurt.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Well, it maybe not as exciting, but maybe as challenging, as we work our way out of the pandemic. It's no secret that the, inflation and additional charges from different vendors and inventory is all been a challenge, and vehicles are no different. So normally we would be purchasing vehicles off a cooperative. Normally we would come to council in advance and we would get the purchase order, and we would go ahead and place that order with the manufacturer to get that vehicle. That's no longer an option. Ordering windows are very short, if they happen at all. Most manufacturers are not interested in manufacturing fleet vehicles because they're doing higher end vehicles or vehicles that cost, they can have a higher profit margin. So what dealerships have reacted to that, thankfully, is they've actually placed some fleet vehicle orders themselves. Normally that's tied to a purchase order, but these dealerships are actually making these purchases on their own and then making the vehicles available to government entities. So this is an example of that. LaFontaine has already requested these vehicles and purchased these vehicles, and they'll become available for government purchases here in about another 6 weeks. The pricing isn't that far off from what we would see in a cooperative, so we're still getting government pricing and fleet vehicle pricing. So this is just a different way that we're going to maybe have to continue doing business when it comes to vehicles, is coming in advance and then making the order is not an option right now.
Thank you, Kurt. Any questions? Councilmember Abraham.
I'll move I-10 bid waiver fleet vehicle purchases as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Abraham, supported by Councilmember Brooks, that we approve I-10 bid waiver fleet vehicle purchases as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Stewart.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Creighanga?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes, motion carries. That concludes regular business this evening. Next up is the consent agenda. We do have a late submittal for J3B, which is a proclamation for National Police Memorial Week. Would anyone like to pull any items from the consent agenda for further discussion this evening? Councilmember Abraham.
I'd like to move all items on the consent agenda, including late submittal J3B, as printed.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Abraham, supported by Councilmember Hoderick, that we approve all items on the consent agenda, including the late submittal for J3B as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Stewart.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krianga?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Motion carries. If you're here on a consent agenda item this evening, all items have been approved. There are no memorandums and future council agenda items this evening, and I don't see anyone has signed up for public comment for items not on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses, so no need for reply. There are no council referrals this evening, so we move on to reports. Any discussion from any of the reports or on any of the reports this evening? Councilmember Hoderick?
The report, the O2 department reports tennis and pickleball court use in the parks. Reading that over and actually appreciating the considerations for the added requests for use. As we're coming out of COVID and we make some of these decisions, I'm a little concerned sometimes that we might be catching groups that have had a long time relationship participating in the pre-COVID way, that if we do too much changing too fast, there could be a lot of frustration created in the community. And, you know, our role here in council trying to represent what we're seeing and hearing from the community. I guess I'm trying to bring that to the table on this particular report, and I'm wondering if, it's not that I disagree with this in principle, but I am a little concerned with the timing, and if we could consider delaying this kind of a change till next spring and having time to work with the directly affected long-time users that are involved, you know, collaborating so that we end out with a solution that people understand and are ready for and have participated in creating. I know that's a lot of work and a lot of you know, here I am questioning from the table a decision. I'm not in the day-to-day management of this, but I feel a responsibility as I'm looking at that report to try to give voice to general feedback I'm getting about changing things so quickly and on the fly, especially as tennis playing is about to start. I would like to at least give consideration to delaying that kind of a change until next spring so that the affected people would have time to adjust.
Thank you, Councilmember Hoderick. You beat me to it in a sense. I've had a lot of discussions with some of the tennis people involved in this, and I think Councilmember Hamilton might have also, and I'm very sensitive to recognizing the need for changes, not just from COVID, but from some institutional stuff over the past several years with our recreation department. And I'm equally concerned about the communication of those changes to our residents, and especially the groups that have had longstanding, it's not ties, longstanding experiences that I think from a policy setting standpoint, it would be wise for us to give consensus to maybe delay a decision like this for another season so we do have that ample time. So I'm happy to see consensus from council, assuming I should ask City Manager Miller if that's feasible. And I know that puts you on the spot a little bit, but I don't, I don't want us to give some sort of direction from that standpoint, and then you come and say later, we literally can't do that. I mean, I don't think that's the case, right?
Well, I think what I would rather is that the consensus is that we look at what was going on and see if we can do it differently than we're doing it right now and report back at the next council meeting.
meaning, sorry, just consensus that,
Consensus to have management re-look at this and see if we can do it differently than what we have proposed at this point in time.
I appreciate that. That's always a good thing. I do have concerns that I know that the tennis season's starting this next weekend. And I don't know that this tennis club, for example, will appreciate that as much as we might. To them, that's going to look like government just, oh, great, they're going to do another report in another 2 weeks. And I know that that's on us to explain that process, but I think from a policy standpoint, there was quick consensus to look at a delay for a year. If you're telling me you think you need something different, that's fine, I guess. I mean, I'm assuming, I just am, and as you know, Mark, and doing this kind of stuff from the table is not the best way to necessarily do these things, but I worry about the communication and the expectation of past practices, and I don't know how to best
I guess
deal with
what
that.
I'm saying is that there might be a way to accomplish this that satisfies our needs at the management level and satisfies their needs, and give us an opportunity to touch bases with the groups again. Because I don't want to go into the details right here, but we did have options for this to continue, but those groups chose not to take those options. So what I would like to commit to is regroup and see if there is another way to accomplish this that may not be exactly the way we did it in the past, to assure certain things occur that were occurring in the past, which were negative to our recreation programming. We need to solve a few things that were occurring, and what I would like the opportunity to do is personally go back with these groups and talk with them, and with Brian Gould, and see if there's a way we can move forward that satisfies some of our concerns, because we did have some concerns that the way we were doing it in the past, that it was not the most effective. There were some situations occurring that aren't good in delivering recreation services that we wanted to solve. So I'm not saying that we're going to do the same old. What I would like to do is go back and specifically talk with these groups and see if there is ways to accomplish this that are slightly different than in the past, that satisfy some of our concerns.
Can that happen fast?
Yes.
Sorry, that's the reality.
It has to happen fast.
Okay. Is that good?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Any other comments on the reports? All right. Council comments.
I'm talked out.
I've talked out, right? Not me. Anybody else? Any council comments? Mine are quick. And the things that have been mentioned tonight. So next Wednesday night, 6 p.m. is the State of the City address. It'll be streamed on our YouTube channel and cable through CMN TV, like our normal council meetings are. We'll talk more about some of the budget things from tonight. Some other fun surprises are coming as well. So please tune in for that. It'll, of course, be replayed and stored on our YouTube so you can watch it after the fact. Also, we have another meeting before then, but the dedication of the phase 1 of the Gene M. Stein Community Park is Thursday, May 26th at 4 p.m. And Gene's planning on being there, so I think that'll be a good opportunity. If anyone in the community wants to go out and show some support for our former mayor and for a new park being open in our city, would invite you all to come to that as well. Those are my comments for tonight. So that was brief. First time. Yeah. There's nobody signed up for public comment for items on or not on the agenda for members of the public outside of Troy, and there's no closed session this evening, so we are adjourned.